Good morning, everybody. How are you doing today? I hope everybody had a great evening. I did. Let's see, what did I do? What did I do? I don't even know what I did. That must not have been very important. Yeah, I diamond painted and I watched a Disney live stream. Yeah, that's what I did. Not important at all. Okay, we are on part 104 of the Phil Spector trial. Our part 104. Their part, I don't know. Lost track. Judy has some trivia for us again this morning. Prosecutors dismissed defense experts who testified that the shooting was consistent with suicide as pay-to-say witnesses who received more than $400,000 for their work. I'm in the wrong line of work, y'all. Oh my goodness. Wow. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. Whew. Okay, so where is everybody this morning? We are on part 3 of the prosecution's closing argument, and the wackadoodle trial does not start until 10 this morning, and we slide in about a half an hour late so we can jump some sidebars and some breaks and such. So we will hopefully we will get through part 3 and part 4, which is all of the prosecution's closing arguments. So hopefully we'll get done with that today. And then tomorrow, hey Jennifer. And then tomorrow there's a little piece that's outside the presence of the jury, and then we will start on defense closings tomorrow. So let's see if we can get done with this today. Prosecution closing. It has been an extremely good closing argument. Except Rosen had to get up and object afterwards because Judge Fiddler said, if you get up and object, I'm just going to tell the jury that they're the finder of facts and they get to decide what they want to believe. So, Fiddler was kind of like, I don't like to interrupt the flow, so don't object, basically. So he waited until the jury was dismissed, I think before a lunch break or something, to get up and object. Whatever. That man, I just don't like him. He tries to be congenial, but like the dumbest jokes, they just fall flat, and I don't know. I don't like his demeanor. I know he's trying to be nice, but it's just not, he doesn't come across that way.
And the jurors in the audience are now present, and Mr. Jackson, you may resume when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. We were just about to, before we broke for the lunch break, we were just about to finish up with a discussion or continue a discussion about pumpkin pie. I want to step back for a second and make sure that we're all on the same page about a couple of quick things. I told you this in my opening remarks, and I want to reiterate this point to you based on some things I...
So now he has to go back and make a few corrections based on what Rosen objected to. And I think one of those things were, he said a few things about the defense. I can't remember what word he used. Well, he's going to fix it, so we'll just listen to what he says.
I said this morning and discussions that we had this morning, this evidence belongs to you. Literally, it's your evidence, nobody else's.
On court TV.
It's not mine, it's not the defense's. All the evidence in this case belongs to you. And your memory and your concept of how the evidence was presented, that's what controls, not necessarily what I say. I'll use an example. I mentioned the jury view this morning. The fact that you went to the jury view and someone among you decided you wanted to see the bar. Well, it dawned on me that not all of you may have wanted to look at the bar. I don't know. Some of you may have looked at it, some of you may not have. Whatever you saw when you looked in that bar, for instance, that would be your evidence. And juror number 2, your concept of what you saw, if you looked in that would be your evidence. Juror number 1, yours would be your evidence. If someone among you taking wasn't necessary, that control evidence. Does that make sense? Nothing I say, I'm not trying, never try to switch, I say, for your memory in the bar, what your memory is. We were talking about pumpkin pie. The same thing applies. With regard to her conduct on the witness stand. When you approach side questions off the record, record out of your presence at sidebar, what her demeanor was, that's up to you. It's your evidence. I'm not, nor would I ever try to say for your memory. Your memory controls in all aspects, and that includes with the defense evidence as well. Prosecution evidence, defense evidence, it doesn't matter. That being said, I want to bring us back to where we left off. And again, this is your evidence. But I want to make some notes. I want to highlight a couple of things. We talked about the timeline and the change of story that Pumpkin Pie told you about, that she had to admit. She had no choice but to admit this change in story. According to her own testimony, according to her, she lied to Detective Tomlin. The question is that really true? We know she was lying because the stories are completely different. The question you have to ask yourself is when she was lying. Was she lying when she spoke with Detective Tomlin? Lying to you on the witness stand. Pumpkin Pie represents the centerpiece. The centerpiece, make no mistake about it, the centerpiece of the defense's evidence about Lana Clarkson. If you don't believe Pumpkin Pie, it all crumbles like a house of cards. Why? Because she is at the center of the spotlight, exactly where she wanted to be. Think about it in graphic terms. Jennifer Hayes, Greg Sims, even that woman, Tanara Henson. And why Tanara Henson was called is to the stand as anybody's guess. I mean, what did she say? She said at a party, at Jeff Franklin's party, and remember she got off the stand and did a little demonstration where she ran and kind of flayed her hands out left and right. And she said, yeah, I was looking for pumpkin pie. Lana Clarkson, rather, was looking for pumpkin pie. Okay, so what? The point is, who did she go to that party with? Pumpkin pie. How did Greg Sims, how was he connected to this whole case? He used to go to Backstage Cafe and hang out with pumpkin pie. Jennifer Hayes, we've already talked about. You have to question whether or not Jennifer Hayes was even giving her own testimony because she's so close to. And what he learned from introducing evidence to you about pumpkin pie. First of all, as of now, 100% of her income is indebted to Backstage Cafe. And we also threw her testimony by the Kessel brothers. And between her testimony and that of Deborah Robitaille, what do we know about the Kessel brothers? What do we know about the Kessel brothers? Who to? You have to ask yourself, the evidence that's being presented to you, trustworthy or is it manipulated? Are there motivations? Are there other motives at play or at work? Who's connected to Philip Spector? There is a direct link between the man seated right here and pumpkin pie. So ask yourself constantly, as you review this evidence, as you think about the evidence and how it came out, ask yourself constantly, can I trust this evidence? Or is there some manipulation going on with the evidence? What is the truth? I told you that at some point, Pumpkin Pie told the truth, and at some point she lied. Now the question becomes when? When was she lying? We know what she told Detective Tomlin. She told Detective Tomlin just hours after Lana Clarkson was killed. She said specifically, now person, she was flamboyant, she was the life of the party, and she was never suicidal. Never. That is what Pumpkin Pie told the investigating officer hours after Lana Clarkson met her death in Philip Spector's home. Lana Clarkson was never suicidal. And you remember I asked her specifically, I asked her on the stand, Ms. Pye, isn't it true that you said at one point, you told a friend of yours, a guy named Rick Browdy, at a memorial service or at a wedding reception, some kind of a get-together, isn't it true that you told him, Phil Spector, with regard to Phil Spector, we should fry that bastard? You remember that? I asked her and she said, her response was very clear. She said, Mr. Jackson, not only did I not say that, I would never say that because I never thought that. I never thought that. She never thought that we would find a letter she wrote in December of that same year. And what did the letter say? This is Pumpkin Pie's words. These are Pumpkin Pie's own words. My Lana, my best friend, my right arm, my inseparable sister was violently and abruptly taken from me at the hands of Phil Spector. February 3rd, 2003. On the one hand, she says, I never thought that, Mr. Jackson. I would never say, fry that bastard. I would never say that. My inseparable sister was taken from me violently and abruptly at the hands of Phil Spector. And as a final attempt to kick something through the goalpost, to see if she could salvage what little credibility she's left with, she comes back on the witness stand. She's called back specifically to try to explain this letter, which is inexplicable. She's a liar, and she lied to you. So she comes back to try to explain the inexplicable, and the best she can come up with is, I was being, remember the phrase, politically correct. I was being politically correct. I just didn't want to offend anybody. I was being politically correct. Give me a break. That was a pathetic attempt at covering up a lie that she got caught in. And one thing that's funny about lies is lies beget other lies, which beget other lies, which beget other lies. We've all seen a situation where a little boy breaks a vase. And all of a sudden he says, well, the dog did it. Well, I thought the dog was outside. The leash broke. Well, the leash is made out of chain. Well, it rusted because it was raining. And now you've got it raining and through a rusted chain and the leash broke, so the dog broke the vase. It wasn't raining, the chain isn't rusted, and the dog never got in the house. I mean, lies beget lies beget lies. And it's funny, once you start down that path, it's hard to stop. She didn't realize when she answered my question, oh, Mr. Jackson, I never thought that. I never thought that Mr. Spector was responsible for the murder of Lana Clarkson. I never thought that. She didn't know that we had the letter, which says exactly that. Exactly that. And she bald-faced lied. Why is that important? Because there is a Cal Crim instruction. It's called California Criminal Law Instruction. That's the face page of the book, and that is the law that the judge is going to read to you. He said you'll all get your own copy of it. And this is what that law says, and I'm quoting directly from it. If you decide that a witness, and put in the word pumpkin pie right there, if you decide that Pumpkin Pie deliberately lied about something significant in this case, you should consider not believing anything Pumpkin Pie said. That comes directly from the law. That is the instruction the judge will give you. If you decide that Pumpkin Pie lied about something significant in this case, you should consider not believing anything she said. The law also says that if a witness, and substitute the word pumpkin pie here for our purposes of our argument, if a witness made a statement before trial, for instance, to Detective Tomlin, that is inconsistent with her testimony in this court, you may consider that earlier statement as the correct one, as the true statement. Again, that will come directly from Judge Fiddler. If you believe that a witness, or Pumpkin Pie, made an inconsistent statement before trial, and you heard evidence of it, she specifically said Lana Clarkson was not depressed, she was not suicidal at the time of her death, then you may consider the earlier statement as the true statement. The defense, through the presentation of their evidence, they attempted over and over and over to drag Lana Clarkson through the mud. The defense, through the presentation of their evidence, wants you to believe something about Lana Clarkson that simply isn't true. They want you to believe this picture that they've attempted to paint of this pathetic basket case who is bound to the deep, dark recesses of her cottage, living a life where she can't get out of bed in the morning, this depressed person who doesn't want to see the light of day and hides under the covers, and the only time she does get up is to walk to the bathroom where she hovers a razor blade over her wrist. That's the picture that the defense wants to paint for Lana Clarkson. And that is not true. That is not the real Lana Clarkson. It simply isn't true. The evidence doesn't bear that out. Did Lana Clarkson have normal emotions? Absolutely. But if anybody had their lives picked through, you could pick an email or a letter or a statement from anybody. Start putting them in order. And it sounds pathetic. Like I said, if the University of Texas loses a football game, God forbid they lose 2 in a row, God knows what someone would think about my statements the day after, the week after, the month after. That is normal human conduct. They want to paint a picture that is absolutely not true. The best way to get an idea of who Lana Clarkson is, or was, is to look at what others have said about her and what she has said about herself. People that you can trust, people that have no skin in the game, people who are working at a club that's owned by the right-hand men of Phil Spector, for instance. Sophia Holguin, she was a coworker, hadn't known Lana Clarkson very long, but what was her comment about Lana Clarkson? She was a professional. She always went above and beyond her duties. She's describing someone who actually enjoyed her job, someone who enjoyed her life, who enjoyed her work, and went into her work 110%. That's what Sophia Holguin was describing. Euphrates Lalandres, what did he say about the foundation room? Remember, the defense would have you believe that Lana Clarkson had come so far and dropped so low in her career that she was basically slinging hash out at some greasy spoon off the 5 somewhere. Is that true? Is that an accurate statement about the job that Lana Clarkson took? This is a job, folks, that her agent suggested she take. He sanctioned this job, saying, absolutely, this is a good job. You're working at the House of Blues, you attending bar and pouring drinks? No, I'm working at the foundation room. Take that job. Are you kidding? There's great connections to be made. Euphrates Lalandres echoed that statement through the evidence. The foundation room hostess was a coveted position. It was a coveted position. And Eric Berghammer said that's the position that she was absolutely built for. She was perfect in that position. And it had great connections, which is exactly why she took it, which is exactly why she's been working there. She was a positive person with a magnetic personality. This from the defense's own witness, David Shapiro. A positive person, a magnetic personality, energetic, Those are the kind of statements that people who knew Lana Clarkson consistently and constantly said about her. Lana was a beautiful, outgoing comedic actress. This from Nick Terzian. And Nick Terzian made several statements about who the real Lana Clarkson was. Lana was an all-out talent. Nothing but great things were ever said about her. Nothing but great things were said about Lana Clarkson. In the industry, granted, he knew her professionally. But what else did he say? He said that any agent, somebody in his position, acts like a babysitter too. I mean, you got high drama. We're dealing with actors and actresses, right? And some of those actors and actresses, according to David Shapiro, can be a little bit dramatic. They have their ups, they have their downs. I even asked Mr. Shapiro, well, you've had your ups and downs. You've had moments of depression, et cetera. Remember what his comment was? He said, hell, I'm depressed right now. And he kind of made light of it, but he agreed. He said, yeah, absolutely. That's part and parcel of the industry. And you know what? I wouldn't trade it for the world. Because the highs are super high and the lows, you get over it and you move on to the next day. You move on to the next thing, the next performance. That's life. And Nick Terzian echoed those comments and said that she was an all-out talent. And nothing in the industry was ever said about her except good things. Does that sound like a depressed, manic depressive person or clinically depressed person? Someone with suicidal ideation or suicidal tendencies? Nick Terzian was so taken and so smitten by Lana Clarkson and her energy level over the years that he developed a phrase that he still uses to this day in his agency. Be a Lana Clarkson. When you really want to catch that audition, when you want to get that call back, when you want to be placed on hold, when you really want to get booked for that part, be a Lana Clarkson. What does he mean by that? You put out 110%. If you're going out for a part as a showgirl, put on the little bowler cap and the mustache and carry a cane. You go 110%.
StreamYard had to wait till I got up to take Belle out. She's gone. I'm gonna mute her.
She was hardworking, she was tenacious, and she was a self-starter. Hardworking, tenacious self-starters are not the people who lock themselves into their hovel, into their little house, turn off all the lights, don't pay the electric bill, don't pay their car payments, don't pay the mortgage. They don't give a darn about anything that's going on around them. Those aren't those people that sit around and hide under covers and television and don't want to live life. Those people may be clinically depressed. That's not Lana Clarkson. But Pi and Jennifer Hayes, they had an out. They had a trap door. And what was that trap door? They were confronted with statements like this and emails like this. What was their little trap door? They said, well, you know what? I know something you don't know, Mr. Jackson. I know the real Clarkson. All of this that you're talking about, that's her game face. That's over here, that's her game face. You remember that testimony? That's her game face. That's the daytime. I know the night Lana. And depressed Lana Clarkson. I'm the real Lana Clarkson. Way down in the deep recesses of her soul. That's the person I know. And you can't test me on it because even though it's not corroborated by any other testimony, I happen to know that. And by the way, if you ask Jennifer, she'll say the same thing. What she did. Listen to this statement. Lana maintained a healthy diet. She exercised. She was a happy and positive and successful person. That was to Dr. Kudrow. And that was from who? Lana Clarkson herself. And what's the problem with Pumpkin Pie's statements? That I knew the real Lana Clarkson. That was just the game face. You don't know the real Lana Clarkson. That was just your game face, this positive person. What's wrong with Jennifer Hayes' statement? That was just the daytime Lana, not the nighttime Lana. I'll tell you the problem with it. Who is this letter written to? It's written to her doctor, which means the doctor-patient privilege applies. There is no more confidence than that. The doctor couldn't have told anybody this if he wanted to. This is where you let it all hang out. Statements to your physician is where you let the real person come out. The game face, this was her game face. Why would Lana Clarkson put on a game face for her own doctor? She's seeing her doctor for headaches. She cannot get rid of the headaches. And her comment to her doctor in confidence, not some game face, not some daytime Lana, in the most respected confidence, was, I'm a happy and positive and upbeat person. That's me. That's the real me. It goes against everything Pumpkin Pie and Jennifer Hayes said. It goes against everything the defense wants you to believe about Lana Clarkson. This is the best evidence. This is the best evidence of who Lana Clarkson was. When she spoke in...
You know what I don't understand is if my best friend had been taken away from me at the hand of somebody else, I would be pissed. I would want to see him go to prison. I don't understand why they're testifying for the defense. It doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Confidence. Your doctor is someone you tell things to you wouldn't tell anybody else. People tell their doctors things they don't tell their spouses. And there's a reason for that. The doctor-patient privilege is sacrosanct. It's just not ever obliterated. Unless, of course, you're murdered. And then people start getting a hold of things like this. This think about what she was planning. Apologize, it's small. Think about what the evidence shows Lana Clarkson was planning. And think in the back of your mind, is this someone who I can picture sitting in her cottage, no electricity, pizza boxes everywhere, empty alcohol containers, laying in bed, not turning on any lights, not turning on the TV, depressed will get out. The kind of people that need an intervention for, that you have to call the doctor for, these clinically depressed people who won't come out of their house for weeks on end. Think about it. Is this the person that's being described here? She was looking forward to 2003. All of the witnesses who talked about who the real Lana Clarkson was said that. She was looking forward to 2003. 2002 was a rough year because she broke her wrists. She couldn't get out and go on auditions. She couldn't get her headshots all completed. She couldn't get the reel done. She couldn't take a call.
Yeah, well, that's disgraceful. That is disgustingly disgraceful. Ugh.
Backs, etc., etc., etc. It was a rough year. But what happened around September, October of 2002? She started getting better. And she started healing. And the pins were removed. And she could move her hand a little bit. She started going on auditions. She started going on callbacks, according to Nick Terzian. She was looking forward to 2003. She was making new contacts at the House of Blues. The House of Blues was something to look forward to, not to dread. And you could tell by the way that she attacked that job. Even Sophia Holguin said, no, she went way above and beyond the call of duty for someone in her position. She attacked that job with vigor. Sound like a depressed person? She was RSVPing to parties. There's a specific email, or it's a Evite, I guess, a response to an Evite from Anne Marie Donahue. Her husband Lee was having a party. She actually RSVP'd to go the next week. She's making plans for the future. She was tapped as the MC, to be the MC for the House of Blues, Los Angeles House of Blues employee parties. In other words, Eric Berg tapped her, Lana Clarkson, to be the face of blues for these parties. Do you think, or did she hate it? Was it going well? A woman who said, I hate having to go to work because I'm pulling. That's the phrase that Pumpkin Pie used. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the phrase, I think, that Jennifer Hayes used as well. Coincidence that they both used that same phrase? Coincidence? Lana Clarkson wasn't pulling chairs out for anybody. Lana Clarkson was well respected in a coveted position at the House of Blues, and she was being tapped to do even that much more of her talent, of her bubbly personality. You think they would tap her to be the employee party? It was this sullen, depressed personality? Absolutely not. She was the opposite of that. She had plans for the new pilot season. She had plans for new auditions. She was actually going on auditions. Even when this woman
Is it gonna do this every time I have to get up and do something for the dogs? Oh, well, great. It's not gonna share. Come on, StreamYard. What are you doing? Quit being stupid. There we go.
couldn't compete in modeling venues, etc., with, I don't know who he said, Paris Hilton or somebody. This is the woman that they keep trying to say was over the hill and pathetic. Take a good look at her. Take a good look at that woman. That, folks, is Lana Clarkson. That is Lana Clarkson. And how did she react to complete strangers? Remember, it was said over and over and over by Nick Terzi and by others that Lana Clarkson had a passion. She had an absolute passion for acting, for this industry. Was it rough? Absolutely it was rough. Was it up and down? Of course it was up and down. She had high highs and she probably had low lows. She got rejections. She got booked on certain things, got rejected for others. And then, lo and behold, a complete stranger asks her, what is your opinion, Ms. Clarkson? What is your opinion about the acting profession? Lana Clarkson didn't expect this to ever be read by anybody except Carlos. This was an email returned to Carlos from her website. And Carlos basically anonymously said, you don't know me, but I'd like some advice about acting. Think about what she said. Hey, Carlos, good luck with your studies and good for you that you're doing the smart thing and pursuing a degree. In my opinion, you can be an actor at any age. Actors tell stories, and the stories of the world are about human beings of all ages. The best advice I can give you is to study the craft of acting. The more you know about your craft, the more likely you are to succeed. There are millions of hopeful actors out there who have
Hey, Wiggles. I am sorry about the technical difficulties, guys. StreamYard has a mind of its own.
action properly. One mustn't take it personally. I've been working as an actor, studying my craft, and continuing to pursue my dreams for many years now. This, contrary to what some would advise, they do not understand my passion and commitment to my art. Don't ever let anyone discourage you, no matter what. Does that sound like someone who has one foot in the grave and the other on a banana peel? Does that sound like someone pathetic basket case laying around her house, pity and depression? Life. Is that who that sounds like? Think about Lana Clarkson on February 2nd, 2003. I'm just going to put these up here and talk to you as you read them over my shoulder. Think about what her day consisted of. The best evidence about what her mindset was on February 3rd, 2003 is what she was doing on February 2nd, 2003. Think about it. Put it together in your mind. Put together the evidence that you've heard. We know that she woke up. She was at her cottage in Venice. We heard from Neely Hudson. She told us a little bit about what Neely was doing. She woke up and it was an absolutely beautiful day in Venice. How do we know that? Neely told us. It was a gorgeous day out. You can imagine in Venice Beach, what? 73, 74 degrees in February probably. A cool breeze blowing in off the ocean. The sun shining. And what did Lana do? She got up, made her bed. You've seen the photos. She made her bed and then began to clean up. I don't know, what did she do? Did she read the paper? Relatively normal morning. And she gets on the phone with her mom. Mom, sweetheart, you want to go shopping? Sure, hon, we'll go shopping. What do you want to buy? You know what? My feet hurt. I'm at this new job. I'm on my feet a lot. My feet hurt. I'd like some new shoes. Let's go shopping for shoes. Okay, hon, we'll do that. What time do you want to meet? Oh, I don't know. Let's meet
I am so sorry, guys. I'm gonna turn the camera off now.
So Lana goes about her day. Clark put eyelashes on, curled her hair. Remember Neely's description? She had this gorgeous set of ringlets. You've seen pictures of her after Philip Spector had his way with her. But before, when she went to work, she had these beautiful blonde ringlets. She put on her slip dress, her jacket, her shoes, her nylons. Sound like a depressed person? Want to get out of the house? Goes to bed, makes that day. Goes shopping that day. Plans on buying one pair of shoes, and she sees another she likes, and she gets those and another, and she gets those and another and another and another. 7 pairs of shoes. Sound like someone who's contemplating her own death? She goes to work that night and works an entire 8-hour shift. Do people who are contemplating their own death go to work? She takes the whole, remember what she did before she left? She made sure she moved her car. Why? Because she was going to need it. She was going home after she met Phil Spector. This is her day. This is all the evidence about her day. On February 2nd, 2003, and the defense would have you believe that she was just wrapped up, contemplating her own death, sitting around with these suicidal thoughts and suicidal ideation, hating herself, hating her job so much that she would actually consider taking her own life. Does that sound like the Lana Clarkson you've gotten to know? Not by a long shot. Not by a long shot. Lana Clarkson, through the evidence in this case, has suffered and endured something that no human being should have to endure. She's been murdered twice. She was murdered once on February 3rd, 2003 by Philip Spector when he put a gun in her mouth, and that gun went off. And her character has been assassinated over the last 4 months through the presentation of the defense evidence, attempting to paint her in a way that simply isn't true. It simply isn't true. I want the defense science case. They spent about half the time attacking Lana Clarkson, the other half of them attacking science. Or to constantly ask yourself, what did you hear from the defense presentation? Did you hear real science? Or did you hear paid scientists? It's a big difference. Through the presentation of their evidence, they've tried one thing, and when that didn't work, they try another. And when that doesn't work, they shift gears and try another. Let's talk a little bit about that. Linda Kinney Bodden stood up here in opening statement, and she made you a promise. She said, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, there's one unimpeachable, unbiased witness in this case, and that unimpeachable, unbiased witness is the science. The science shall set you free, according to Linda Kinney Bodden. Well, let's explore that for just a second and see what their science really was. When you take a look at it closely, the defense unimpeachable, unbiased science was paid $200,000 for their opinion. And that's just some of them. That's just 3 of them, as a matter of fact. Dr. Bodden, Dr. Spitz, Dr. DeMaio. $200,000 for their opinions. This is the unimpeachable, unbiased science. $5,000 a day for testimony. The unimpeachable, unbiased science.
What in the heck? Man, I am having a day. It's not even Monday. What is happening? Jeez, Colin, it's all your fault. I don't know why, but it is. What is happening? I thought we were going to finish this today. It's for crying out loud. I hate this website so much. Well, that's not true. Quit lying to me. You'd think National Sunday Day would be on a Sunday. Okay, it's gonna crash again, I think. Ugh. I have got this computer. I am so sorry, guys. Next trial we do, I'm gonna find one that is on YouTube. We're not using this stupid court TV website. Not until I get more RAM in my computer, because I think that is the problem. I wish I had realized when we got this computer that it only had 8 gigs of RAM. We may not be able to watch the rest of this because it just doesn't want to load. I don't know why it just stopped in the middle and won't load now. Oh, well, we got something. I think we already watched this part, but we got something. Maybe it'll. Okay, I'm gonna turn off the camera again. Let's try this.
Absolutely not. She was the opposite of that. She had plans for the new pilot season. She had plans for new auditions. She was actually going on auditions. She was, even when she was sick, even when this woman had pins in her arms, you know what she was doing? She wasn't sitting around feeling sorry for herself. According to Nick Terzi and Neely Hudson, she was actually writing skits. She was advancing her reel. She wanted people to see the new Lana Clarkson, the comedic Lana Clarkson. She was distributing that reel to anybody and everybody because she was a self-starter and a go-getter. She was actually booked for a modeling ad the Friday before she met Phil Spector. She was booked for the modeling ad at Siemens the Friday before she met Phil Spector, and she had gotten headshots done. This is the person that the defense wants you to believe was this downtrodden, pathetic basket case, and according to Dr. DeMaio, the casting director, Dr. DeMaio, she couldn't compete in Hollywood. She couldn't compete in modeling venues, etc. With, I don't know who he said, Paris Hilton or somebody. This is the woman that they keep trying to say was over the hill and pathetic. Take a good look at her. Take a good look at that woman. That, folks, is Lana Clarkson. That is Lana Clarkson. And how did she react to complete strangers? Remember, it was said over and over and over by Nick Terzi and by others that Lana Clarkson had a passion. She had an absolute passion for acting, for this industry. Was it rough? Absolutely it was rough. Was it up and down? Of course it was up and down. She had high highs and she probably had low lows. She got rejections. She got booked on certain things, got rejected for others. And then, lo and behold, a complete stranger asks her, what is your opinion, Miss Clarkson? What is your opinion about the acting profession? Lana Clarkson didn't expect this to ever be read by anybody except Carlos. This was an email returned to Carlos from her website. And Carlos basically anonymously said, you don't know me, but I'd like some advice about acting. Think about what she said. Hey, Carlos, good luck with your studies and good for you that you're doing the smart thing and pursuing a degree. In my opinion, you can be an actor at any age. Actors tell stories, and the stories of the world are about human beings of all ages. The best advice I can give you is to study the craft of acting. The more you know about your craft, the more likely you are to succeed. There are millions of hopeful actors out there who have no idea what kind of stamina, courage, and self-confidence it takes to pursue acting and to handle rejection properly. One mustn't take it personally. I've been working as an actor, studying my craft and continuing to pursue my dreams for many years now. This, contrary to what some would advise, they do not understand my passion and commitment to my art. Don't ever let anyone discourage you, no matter what. Don't let anyone discourage you, no matter what. Does that sound like someone who has one foot in the grave and the other on a banana peel? Does that sound like someone who is this pathetic basket case laying around her house, doing nothing for herself, just wallowing in self-pity and depression? Someone who would actually consider taking their own life. Is that who that sounds like? Think about Lana Clarkson on February 2nd, 2003. I'm just going to put these up here and talk to you as you read them over my shoulder. Think about what her day consisted of. The best evidence of mindset was on February 3rd, 2003. It's what she was doing on February 2nd, 2003. Think about it. Put it together in your mind. Put together the evidence that you've heard. We know that she woke up. She was at her cottage in Venice. We heard from Neely Hudson. She told us a little bit about what Neely was doing. She woke up and it was an absolutely beautiful day in Venice. How do we know that? Neely told us. It was a gorgeous day out. You can imagine in Venice Beach, what, 73, 74 degrees in February probably? A cool breeze blowing in off the ocean, the sun shining. And what did Lana do? She got up, made her bed. You've seen the photos. She made her bed and then began to clean up. I don't know, what did she do? Did she get a cup of coffee, get a cup of tea for herself, read the paper, read Variety maybe? I don't know. Appears that it was a relatively normal morning. And she gets on the phone with her mom. Mom, sweetheart, you want to go shopping? Sure, hon, we'll go shopping. What do you want to buy? You know what? My feet hurt. I'm at this new job. I'm on my feet a lot. My feet hurt. I'd like some new shoes. Let's go shopping for shoes. Okay, hon, we'll do that. What time do you want to meet? Oh, I don't know. Let's meet early afternoon or so because I have to work tonight. Perfect. No problem. That's fine. So Lana goes about her day. Neely Hudson shows up at the house. Lana Clarkson had taken a shower. She cleaned up, put her makeup on, put eyelashes on, curled her hair. Remember Neely's description? She had this gorgeous set of ringlets. You've seen pictures of her after Philip Spector had his way with her. But when she went to work, she had these beautiful blonde ringlets. She put on her slip dress, her jacket, her shoes, her nylons. Sound like a depressed person who doesn't want to get out of the house? Makes her bed, makes plans that day, goes shopping that day, plans on buying one pair of shoes, and she sees another she likes, and she gets those and another, and she gets those and another and another and another. 7 pairs of shoes. Sound like someone who's contemplating her own death? She goes to work that night and works an entire 8-hour shift. Do people who are contemplating their own death go to work? She takes her car in, works the whole shift, and remember what she did before she left. She made sure she moved her car. Why? Because she was going to need it. She was going home after she met Phil Spector. This is her day. This is all the evidence about her day. On February 2nd, 2003, and the defense would have you believe that she was just wrapped up, contemplating her own death, sitting around with these suicidal thoughts and suicidal ideation, hating herself, hating her job so much that she would actually consider taking her own life. Does that sound like the Lana Clarkson that you've gotten to know? Not by a long shot. Not by a long shot. Lana Clarkson through the evidence in this case, has suffered and endured something that no human being should have to endure. She's been murdered twice. She was murdered once on February 3rd, 2003 by Philip Spector when he put a gun in her mouth and that gun went off. And her character has been assassinated over the last 4 months through the presentation of the defense evidence, attempting to paint her in a way that simply isn't true. It simply isn't true. I want to change gears for a second and talk a little bit about the defense science case. They spent about half the time attacking Lana Clarkson, the other half the time attacking the science, or presenting what they promised to you to be the science in this case. And you have to constantly ask yourself, what did you hear from the defense presentation? Did you hear real science? Or did you hear paid scientists? It's a big difference. Through the presentation of their evidence, the defense has consistently bent and twisted the truth in this case, the true science. They've tried one thing, and when that didn't work, they try another. And when that doesn't work, they shift gears and try another. Let's talk a little bit about that. Linda Kinney Bodden stood up here in opening statement, and she made you a promise. She said, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, there's one unimpeachable, unbiased witness in this case, and that unimpeachable, unbiased witness is the science. The science shall set you free, according to Linda Kinney Bodden. Well, let's explore that for just a second and see what their science really was. When you take a look at it closely, the defense unimpeachable, unbiased science was paid $200,000, more than $200,000 in this case, for their opinions. And that's just some of them. That's just 3 of them, as a matter of fact. Dr. Bodden, Dr. Spitz, Dr. DeMaio. $200,000 for their opinions. This is the unimpeachable, unbiased science. $5,000 a day for testimony. The unimpeachable, unbiased science. Their unimpeachable, unbiased science removed evidence from the crime scene and concealed that evidence from the prosecution, from the court, and most importantly, from you, Dr. Henry Lee. And that unimpeachable, unbiased science ended up being married to one of the defense attorneys. Unimpeachable, unbiased science, according to Linda Kinney Bodden. She said that there would be 10 points that would scientifically prove that Lana Clarkson was holding that weapon at the time it was discharged. 10 points that would scientifically prove that. Your Honor?
Yes.
May I?
See that? Oh, did you see that look? Oh, wow.
Let's take a closer look at those 10 points. I just put them up here. This is a very brief overview of what the 10 points are. It includes the bullet trajectory, the back spatter, the distance that it traveled, the tissue on the sleeves, the GSR, location of tooth material, DNA on the cartridges, the size disparity, amazingly enough, and blood clotting on the diaper, the blood on the gun, and the broken acrylic nail. 10 points that would scientifically prove that Lana Clarkson was holding the weapon. Let's take those in order. The bullet trajectory. The bullet trajectory was testified to by Dr. Pena. He indicated, He indicated that the bullet went front to back, basically along the midline. All of their experts agreed front to back, basically along the midline. And remember what Dr. Pena said? He said it doesn't matter where the head is. Does not matter. You put the trajectory rod into the mouth at the appropriate angle. You can move the head in any position you want to. Any position you want to. It tells you nothing about whose hand was on the weapon when it was fired. It tells you exactly 0 about whose hand was on the weapon when it was fired. So then I asked Dr. DeMaio, Dr. DeMaio, what does the bullet trajectory tell you? Linda Kenny Bodden promised that it was going to show scientifically that she had to have her hand on the gun.
Right, Judy, she did.
Dr. DeMaio said, no, it doesn't really tell you anything. He said the head can be in any position at all. False. 1 point down. Absolutely false. The science that Ms. Kenny Bodden said would prove whose hand was on the gun concerning the bullet trajectory, 100% false. Tells you nothing of the kind. The bullet trajectory in this case is consistent with homicide. It's consistent with Philip Spector holding the gun, and her head could be in any position. That's what the science tells you. Blood spatter traveled 72 inches, number 2. Linda Kenny Bodden said, we're going to introduce you to the inimitable Dr. Henry Lee, who's going to tell you that the blood spatter in this case traveled 72 inches. All the way across the room, 6 feet away. Did you hear that evidence? Henry Lee was going to come in and say that blood spatter traveled 72 inches, 6 feet away. Therefore, Mr. Spector had to be standing 6 feet away. He couldn't have fired the fatal bullet. Therefore, scientifically, it's proved. Only problem is, Henry Lee didn't testify in this case. And I can promise you something. If Henry Lee had agreed with that postulate, if he would agree with that statement, you would have heard from him. And you didn't. So what does that mean? Wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. That is a false statement. There is no evidence in this trial that the blood spatter in this case traveled 72 inches. Let's take number 3. Tissue on the sleeve. I should have just stayed up there. You know what? As a matter of fact, I'm going to walk back up there. Tissue on the... Do I need to talk about tissue on the sleeve anymore? I mean, haven't we beaten that dead horse? The tissue on the sleeve is from, and you can all say it with me, The Purge. The tissue on the sleeve, on the back of her sleeve, is from The Purge. The tissue on it, they desperately wanted those buttons to be facing her mouth. Because then they could say something about she's got some tissue on her buttons and he doesn't have that same tissue on his jacket, therefore you got to separate them physically, and therefore he couldn't have fired the fatal bullet. The problem is they're just wrong. They're just dead wrong. The tissue on the sleeve, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure it out. I kept putting pictures up there. Well, Dr. Bodden, look at this picture of the sleeve. This big, giant mark of blood soaked into the sleeve. And he'd say, that doesn't look like blood to me. Are you kidding? It was laughable. It was laughable. And then they start this action. Hang on a second. I'm going to ruin another suit doing this. Hang on. There we go. There, you've got that going on. Oh, my gosh. Are you kidding? Is this trustworthy evidence, or is this an attempt, a desperate attempt at manipulation? Number 4, the GSR. Who wants to hear a 30-minute dissertation about GSR? Me neither. You folks have had to endure discussions about GSR that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Let me just say it this way. Chris Pinto, Steve Dowell, all the experts have agreed. GSR is a cloud. It's simple, folks. It's an amorphous cloud, and it lands on anything that it's around. And when a gunshot is fired right here in your face, it's going to surround you. It's going to surround your hands if they're in your lap. It's going to surround your hands if they're up. You can't quantify it. You can't say there's 36 pieces of GSR on her and 32 on him, therefore she fired the gun and he didn't, or vice versa. You can't do that. And you certainly can't do it when one of the parties washes or wipes his or her hands. It removes the GSR. The GSR will prove that Lana Clarkson fired the gun. False. Number 5, the tooth material. Actually, because the exactly the opposite of what Kenny Bodden wanted it to prove. If Mr. Spector were standing in front of her, anywhere in front of her, he would have blocked the tooth material. And we know that some of the tooth material went toward the stairs, right? Except he did block some of the tooth material. She had a tooth fragment on her abdomen. Remember that? I guess Ms. Kenny Bodden forgot that one. There's an action for every an equal opposite reaction for every action. I just said that backwards, but you guys get the point, right? There is a recoil. Boom, the gun comes out, and the teeth shatter. Some of them, because he's standing on her right, some of them are going to go over his shoulder. Some of them are...
I'm shocked. He screwed up a Newton's law. He's so good with his physics, and he just screwed up a Newton's law. I don't remember which one it is. I failed physics. Don't ask me. But that's a Newton's law, and he screwed it up.
Are going to go toward the left, some of them are going to go over the head, whatever. But one tooth material, I can tell you where they're not going to go. One of the teeth is not going to go, blink, right down onto her abdomen. It's not going to happen. When every other tooth is across the room, that one's not going to end up on her abdomen, unless someone is standing here. And that fragment hits the jacket and bounces straight down. The tooth material on her abdomen actually proves the opposite of what Ms. Kenny Bodden wants it to prove. It proves that he was standing in front of her. Number 6. We've already talked about number 6. The DNA was on the front, on the top, or the tips of the bullet, or the bullets, not the bottom. That was just dead wrong. Number 7, what else did Ms. Kenny Bodden say was going to definitively and scientifically, remember what her statements were, scientifically prove that she fired the weapon? The size disparity. She's bigger than Spector, and therefore, scientifically, she should have been able to disarm him. I didn't say this. That's what Ms. Kenny Bodden said. I mean, literally, this came out of the mouths of their science witnesses. A scientist took an oath and swore to tell the truth and literally got on the stand and said, because she weighs more and she's taller, she had to have shot herself because if he had the gun, she could disarm him. I was so incredulous. I was so taken aback. I asked him, Dr. DeMaio, how many people have you disarmed? In an incredulous tone of voice. And wouldn't you know, he said, oh, I don't know, 2 or 3. 2 or 3? What is he, when he's not being a pathologist, like he rips open his shirt and he's got a big S on his chest? I mean, is he the ninja pathologist? What is this guy? Are you kidding? That's scientific evidence? That's the best they can do? She should have disarmed him? She should have snatched the revolver right on the cylinder and kept it from turning so that... Are you kidding? This is their scientific evidence? That's the best they can do? That's for Dr. DeMaio, that's what, $30,000 gets you that? I'd ask for my money back. Are you kidding? But that was the testimony. You know, there's an old saying, and maybe it's more prevalent where I come from and not out here. God made all men and women, and Samuel Colt made them all equal. What that means is guns are the great equalizer. I don't care how big or small you are. If I got a gun and you don't, I win. Lana Clarkson wasn't going to disarm anybody. That is the most ridiculous statement of any of the science experts. And there were some whoppers, by the way. We haven't gotten to the magic blood theory, but we will. Blood clotting on the diaper. Number 8. The blood clotting on the diaper was, according to Linda Kenny Bodden, going to scientifically prove that she pulled the trigger, that the gun was in her hand. I just don't even get that. I don't get it. I don't know how to argue it. I don't get it. One thing has nothing to do with
I wonder if he's making it squeak on purpose so that they don't forget this.
the other. I can tell you this, though. She suggested that it proves he rendered aid. The blood clotting on the diaper. That he was rendering aid, not by a long shot. The blood clotting on the diaper, according to their own experts, who had to admit on cross-examination, I asked him, isn't it true that the scientific literature indicates that it takes up to 15 minutes for blood to even begin to clot? The answer is yes. There is some literature out there that says that. As a matter of fact, I believe that literature came from Dr. Henry Lee's own book. If he was rendering aid, he would have contacted her immediately. And by the way, there's another way to render aid other than grabbing a diaper and wiping her face. You all know what that is, and we'll talk more about that in just a second. The blood clotting on the diaper does not prove that he rendered aid. What it proves is that he wiped her face. He was trying to clean up the mess that he had made. The blood on the gun. Mrs. Kenny Bodden indicated that the blood on the gun and the way that it was wiped is going to show that the gun was accidentally kicked across the carpet. The gun was kicked across the carpet. Where's something I can kick? There it is. Doesn't look much like a gun, but it'll serve its purpose. The gun was kicked across the carpet, and that accounts for all the blood that was moved or removed on that gun. The gun was wiped on both sides. Into the cylinder, into the flutes. Both sides of the front sight were wiped down. The handle was wiped. That gun was wiped completely down. Now, it wasn't wiped completely off, because as you begin to smear blood, blood from one point gets to another. I mean, it's just sort of obvious. But this is what Ms. Linda Kinney Bodden says accounts for the blood on the gun. Does it? No. No, not even close. As a matter of fact, there is no blood on the carpet. The carpet was checked for blood. The carpet was luminol. And that luminol, we'll talk a little bit more about Steve Renteria in just a second. That luminol is so sensitive, 1 in 5 million parts. It actually luminesced where the rag was dropped. That rag was dropped onto a piece of carpet next to the toilet. The rag was picked up, and the carpet luminesced underneath. If a bloody gun was wiped across the carpet to the point that it's literally wiping blood off the gun, that carpet would have luminesced. That carpet would have had blood on it, and there was, in fact, none. Another false statement. Not supported by any of the science. And then we come to the broken nail. Mr. Kinney Bodden's last point. The broken nail. The broken acrylic nail, she said scientifically was going to prove that this wound was self-inflicted. All three of her experts, her husband, Michael Bodden, Dr. DeMaio, and Dr. Spitz all said, oh yeah, the nail broke on the trigger. And I said, where's the science that shows that? Where's the evidence of that? Well, because I said so. Because I want the nail to break on the trigger. It broke on the trigger, Mr. Jackson. Leave me alone about it. I'm telling you, it broke on the trigger. Well, Dr. DeMaio, where's the evidence that it broke on the trigger? Show me a piece of physical evidence. Linda Kinney Bodden says the science was going to prove it. You're a scientist, but you're just saying stuff. Show me where it broke on the trigger. How do you know it didn't break on the bathroom door when she was getting in or out of her car or at the House of Blues? Give me something. Mr. Jackson, get off my back. I said so. I want it to break on the trigger, so it's going to break on the trigger. Pretty simple. Leave me alone about it. And that's their science. Now, what do we know about a small white object? We do know one thing about a small white object, and that is Henry Lee picked one up. And Henry Lee didn't turn it over to the prosecution. And Henry Lee didn't turn it over to the court. And Henry Lee made sure You folks never saw it. So what does that mean they get to do with their arguments? I mean, was that nail broken in a struggle? There's other evidence of a struggle. Was that nail part of a struggle? Certainly seems reasonable, doesn't it? But one thing you can know for sure, folks, you will never know. Because Henry Lee made sure that nail, or whatever it was, that white object, was never turned over. So what was it? I don't know. I can't answer that question for you. And you can't answer that question either. So what does that free them up to do? It frees them up to stand up an opening statement and say anything they want to about that nail. It frees their experts to get on the stand and swear to tell the truth and tell you scientifically, in my opinion, it broke on the trigger, and there's nothing you can do about it, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. You can't prove otherwise, can you? You can't prove otherwise. This does not prove that the wound suffered was self-inflicted. All the broken acrylic nail proves is that she had a broken acrylic nail. Not one expert was able to give you scientific evidence showing where that nail was broken or how it got broken. False. At the end of the day, not one, not even one of the scientific postulates that Ms. Linda Kinney Bodden promised we're going to prove, independently promised we're going to prove that this wound was self-inflicted, not one stands up to the scrutiny of the evidence. Not even one. I mean, I'd give you one, but not even one. One by one, they started falling like tin soldiers, over and over and over. So what happened? What happens when your science starts falling apart? You just start changing the science. That's easy enough. Think about how the science in this case came into evidence. First, Linda Kinney Bodden, through her opening statement, indicated that the back spatter was going to be proven to fly 72 inches. And this was going to come from Dr. Lee, and of course Dr. Lee never testified in this case, never told you anything even close to this. And if he were in a position to tell you something like this, he would have come in here and said it. The reasonable interpretation of that is, even he didn't agree with that statement. So, what the heck? Let's just change it. Now let's change it to a slight exhale. Maybe Lana Clarkson exhaled after she was shot, and that accounts for the blood on Mr. Spector. Well, Dr. DeMaio didn't stand up, the science didn't stand up on cross-examination for that postulate either. Lana Clarkson's spine was completely transected, and this is before we get to Dr. Bodden. Dr. DeMaio's agreed that the spine was completely transected, and she couldn't have moved. You know what? That's not really working out for us. Let's go to satellite spatter. I know, there's satellite spatter. Mr. James testified that there was satellite spatter that could, he said could, account for drops that looked like the drops on his jacket. Remember what I asked him on cross-examination, though. Remember what I asked him. All right, you're saying that one thing drops into another, blood drops into blood, and could spatter, correct? He said, yes. Are you telling this jury that the pattern on Phil Spector's jacket is accountable by satellite spatter? You're saying that this pattern is satellite spatter? And he said, no. That's not what I'm telling you. I'm telling you that a couple of drops could have been from satellite spatter. I'm not telling you that the pattern that appears on his jacket is all from satellite spatter, because it makes no sense. It makes no sense. So they changed that. All right, well, let's just go with something crazy. Who knows what'll stick? We're throwing spaghetti against the wall, so let's see what sticks. Next they come up with this. I dare you to try to write that. You're going to write, did a raspberry sound. Dr. Spitz is up there doing raspberries. The man's been practicing medicine for 54 years, and the best he can do is come up with a raspberry. He blows raspberries. That sounded ridiculous right off the top, and they decided, you know what, we can't go with the raspberry defense. Let's change it to the victim coughed. So we'll call a neuropathologist who will say the victim coughed. Except, again, On cross-examination, I asked, give me the timing, Dr. Lietzma, give me the timing of when she coughed. Instantaneously, she might have had one reflexive cough at the time the shot was fired. That doesn't help us. Darn it. That doesn't help us because that still puts Spector right on top of her at the time the shot's fired. So let's change a couple of questions. I think Mark Scott Taylor and maybe one or two other witnesses. Well, what about prime rib spatter? I mean, could it be something, he'd gotten something on his jacket from prime rib, which was, good for comic relief. But even Mark Scott Taylor said, Mr. Plord, it's her blood. It's not a cow's blood on his jacket. It's her blood. So the prime rib's out. You know what? I'll tell you what. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to drop back and launch a Hail Mary pass and see where that comes out. We're going to say, Lana, she was alive. We're just going to bring her back to life. What the heck? We've tried everything else, and none of the other science is working for us. Let's just bring her back to life. Her spine wasn't transected. That'll be great. It'll work out terrific. We'll see some of those neurons were still shooting, and she could cough and breathe for 2 to 4 minutes, as a matter of fact. 2 to 4 minutes. And you're supposed to believe that Lana Clarkson was...
Can you imagine Canoni allowing this type of closing? She'd be apoplectic by now.
shot through the back of the head vis-a-vis her mouth. Her spine was cut in half. There were some axons left. This is what you're expected to believe. There were some axons left, allowing her entire respiratory system to work, and that she breathed in 3 pounds of blood into her lungs. And what was Philip Spector doing all this time? I mean, even if you assume that's true, she's gurgling and dying in her own blood. She's drowning in 3 pounds of her own blood. And what's he doing? Wiping the gun off and stuff like that? If you're thinking to yourself, it doesn't really make sense, it's because it doesn't make sense. Because it's not true. And this last-minute Hail Mary pass, just because it comes from Dr. Bodden, a forensic pathologist, ain't going to make it true. When the defense didn't like the way their science was going, they just changed the science. And this is supposedly the unimpeachable, unbiased science that they're going to rely on. The unimpeachable, unbiased science. I'm going to move through this because I've touched on a lot of this already. I'm going to move through this a little bit more quickly than I had anticipated. We know that their unimpeachable, unbiased science was paid a lot of money. And one of the things I do want to touch on is Dr. DeMaio. I was just fascinated well, the interesting thing about Dr. DeMaio's testimony is the fact that he wasn't willing to say no to anything. I mean, he'd answer any question. He wouldn't say anything was out of bounds. He wouldn't say anything was outside of his expertise. The man was an expert on everything. At different times in his testimony, he never said these words, but at different times in his testimony, he testified that he was an expert on everything from firearms to psychology to toxicology to GSR, casting director, bloodstain patterns, statistics, physics, histology, fluid mechanics, hydrodynamics, aerodynamics,
Nail tech.
ballistics, criminalistics, and martial arts, of all things. Because she should have been able to snatch that gun away from him. I know so. The man would say anything. You ask him a question and he's going to say, whoop, yep, I can answer that. For $30,000, I'll answer anything you want. They got every penny's worth out of him. Are you kidding? That was the best money Mr. Spector ever spent. They got every penny's worth because he wasn't willing to say he didn't know a single thing. He's the expert on everything. And he's the expert on backsplatter. And the funny thing about backsplatter is he said that he went to different locations, and when I asked him about backsplatter, he said, oh yeah, I'm an expert on backsplatter, and I've been to different crime scenes where there's backsplatter on the wall and backsplatter on the ceiling, and I know that backsplatter can get on the gun and on the...
He's saying splatter. It's not... AJ, no! It's not splatter. It's spatter. Oh, honey. No, you did not say that. It's spatter.
the hand of the person who's firing the weapon, and backsplatter goes all over the place. As a matter of fact, backsplatter can go 6 feet sometimes. Backsplatter can even go 6 or 8 feet sometimes. What's wrong with everything I just said there? Yeah, right. I'm using the wrong word. He said backsplatter over and over. There's no word as splatter. It's spatter. The man is claiming to be an expert in backspatter and doesn't know even the most basic terminology. I'm not saying he's not an expert on something. He's a hell of an expert on forensic autopsies. That's what he does. The problem is the autopsy can't tell you anything about who fired the weapon in this case. You have to look outside the autopsy, as Dr. Pena told you. So what do they do for $30,000? He says, you know what, I'll look outside the autopsy. I'll look anywhere you want me to look. And what do you want me to say? I'll say anything you want me to say. Dr. DeMaio testified as an expert on just about everything under the sun. You have to ask yourself, is this the quality and character of the science that I can believe? Is that really science, or is that just a scientist? There's a difference between a scientific opinion and the opinion given by a scientist. And when I asked him give me some citations, Dr. DeMaio, give me some citations that support your idea that the back splatter could go more than 6 feet in this case from an intraoral gunshot wound, because that was his testimony. Give me a citation. He said, well, there was this German guy, and he shot a calf in the head. Pardon? He shot a what? He shot a cow in the head. I'm sorry, did you say a cow? He shot a calf? A cow? Yeah, that's what he shot. Was that an intraoral gunshot wound? Well, it was a shot to the temple. To the what? To the temple. Oh, so wait a minute. So you're telling us that you can opine as an expert. Lana Clarkson is a human being who is shot through the mouth. And you're opining as an expert in backsplatter and basing your opinion on a single experiment done by a German guy who shot a calf in the temple. You didn't even get 2 of the 3 right. Yeah, that's what I'm basing my opinion on. You got anything else, Dr. DeMaio? No, that's about it. All right, well, let's move on then. That's the best he could do insofar as scientific authority is concerned for his opinions. He also ignored the evidence at the crime scene. And this is a running theme, and I'll say it now so I can kind of get past it. This will come up with Dr. Lynn Harold as well. Mr. Pex, Mr. James all agreed. What you have to look at, folks, is the evidence at the scene. The evidence at the scene. You've all been educated on this now. You know that it's the evidence at the scene that controls. Not what might happen, not what could happen in a theoretical case, not what has happened in the past in experiments. Look at the evidence at the scene. Lana Clarkson was stretched back in the chair. The blood spatter stopped at the hem of her skirt. All right? I asked Dr. DeMaio about that. Did you look at the evidence at the scene? I mean, come on, isn't that the best way to evaluate what happened at a particular scene? Look at the evidence that appears at that scene. No, I didn't look. I don't care. I ignored that. Doesn't matter to me. Why? Because he's not getting paid to talk about the evidence at the scene. He's getting paid to say what Mr. Spector wants him to say, or what's in Mr. Spector's best interest. And he refused to consider Philip Spector's history. He would talk all day long about Lana Clarkson. You remember. He'd talk all day long till the cows came home, no pun intended, about Lana Clarkson. When I asked him, well, did you consider Mr. Spector's history? He was the other guy in the room. Come on, folks. He was the other guy in the room. Did you consider his history of violence, his history with women, his history with guns? No, absolutely not. I don't care about that. Why don't you think he cares about that? Because he's getting his paycheck from that guy. He's not stupid. He's not going to stand up there and say, oh yeah, I considered Mr. Spector's history of violence with women, and my goodness, looks pretty bad for Mr. Spector. No. He's getting a paycheck from the guy. This is the unimpeachable, unbiased witness. Science. And then we had Dr. Spitz. $50,000, maybe a little bit more because he testified a couple more times and I don't think I updated my slide, but I think it's probably up to 55 or 60,000. Doesn't really matter. Comes up with raspberries and magic blood theory. Two things completely, well, they're completely ridiculous for one thing, but they're also completely an opposite of each other. Raspberries suggests that he got the back spatter on him when he walked up and she's, blowing raspberries after she's already dead, amazingly enough. He had absolutely no authority for that. He had no scientific authority to point to say that she was doing raspberries and spitting stuff and, whatever. And then he's got the magic blood theory. And I asked him again, a little bit incredulously, expecting an answer that I didn't quite get. I said, so wait a minute. Wait. You're telling me you agree that there's no blood found on the carpet, there's no blood found on her thighs, on her shins, on her shoes, on the wall behind Mr. Spector, on the wall behind Mr. Spector, the stairs, nothing. You say that Mr. Spector is standing 6 feet away, and that blood is spattered. It comes back out, a high impact spatter comes out and lands on her skirt, then jumps over her thighs. You remember this? Jumps over her thighs, takes a right, then collects itself into a perfect uniform pattern, finds the left side of his jacket, pow, and finds Mr. Spector 6 feet away. No blood behind him, no blood in front of him, no blood to the left, no blood to the right. Just right there. And his answer was, yep, that's what I think. Absolutely. I figured I probably could have stopped about that point with my cross-examination.
But you can stop now on your argument. We're going to take a recess. Keep in mind the admonition will be in recess for 15 minutes.
I love Judge Fiddler. I'm so glad he was saying splatter on purpose. I was horrified. I was like, oh no, please tell me he did not just say splatter. Okay, come on. I got all of the glitches this morning, but we'll maybe with this stupid web player or whatever it is on Court TV's website.
Once again, the second defense expert in a row who refused to consider Mr. Spector's history. I asked all of them.
Come on, StreamYard.
About it. All of them, including Dr. Body, said, doesn't matter to me. You have to ask yourself why. Why would it not matter? Mr. Spector's history. His history with guns, his history with women. Because they're getting a paycheck from him, that's why. Remember Dr. Spitz, when he was first on the stand, they hadn't developed this moving goal line, if you will. I'm going to see how much ball, referencing the closing argument. They hadn't moved their goal line all the way to the point where they wanted to start talking about Lana Clarkson being resurrected back to life. So Dr. Spitz didn't make mention one, not a mention about Lana Clarkson's spine not being transected. At the time testified, that was just a given. Of course it was a given, because Dr. Bodden pointed this epiphany, or Hail Mary pass yet. Spitz changed his story a little bit. Dr. Bott, Ain't no two ways about it. He was batting cleanup. Anything that couldn't be covered by Dr. DeMaio, by Dr. Lietzma, by Dr. Spitz, Dr. Bodden, with his $110,000 paycheck, was going to come in and clean up. Dr. Bodden obviously had a difficulty, or has an issue, I should say. He had an issue with the battle of the vows. On the one hand, he stands up and says, I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Then he takes the stand. How long does that oath or that vow last? Till he walks out that door. I promise to love, honor, and obey. How long does that vow last? How long does that oath last? Mrs. Kinney Bodden is still his wife. He still goes home to her. They still have a relationship. He had a clear conflict of interest. And I'm walking a very fine line, and I'm walking it on purpose. I just want to put it out there so nobody thinks that I'm doing anything untoward. I am in an untenable position, an extremely difficult position. I can't stand up here. I would never stand up here and launch salvos across Mrs. Bodden's bow. Mrs. Kinney Bodden hadn't done anything to me, and I think she's a fine lady. Nothing I say is a personal attack on Mrs. Kinney Bodden. I think she understands that. But my goodness gracious, talk about a whopper of a bad decision. And I'll put it on Dr. Bodden, because he was the one that testified. He was the one that swore the oath. He was the one that gave you his, quote, science evidence. Can you imagine a worse decision than to decide to become the expert in the case your wife is trying? Your credibility is at issue to begin with, because every witness's credibility is at issue. But my goodness, with a conflict of interest that blatant, that brazen, how could you possibly put stock in what Dr. Bodden said? He has skin in the game. He has an interest. And the interest is, once he leaves this courtroom, he moves on to his next case or does whatever he does, God bless him. But he goes home to the woman seated about 5 behind me. You think he's going to get up there and honestly say, even if he thought it, honestly say, you know what? I think Mr. Spector, you know what? It's a homicide. I think he did it. I think he did it because he's got the motive to do it. He's been pulling guns on women for years. She's in his house. She wouldn't know where his gun was. There was only one drawer open. I mean, all the things that Dr. Pena considered. You think Dr. Bodden would ever be able to live that down if he said that? No way. Dr. Bodden had no choice. He had no choice about how he was going to testify. And then he gets up and says, I don't know what a conflict of interest is. Dr. Bodden knew. He had to have known that I was going to ask the simple question. Doc, tell the jurors, what's your definition of a conflict of interest? I mean, it's so obvious. It's not like that was some brilliant question I came up with. He knew I was going to ask that. And the easiest way to answer it is, I don't know. That's some legal schmiegel term. I don't know what that is. Conflict of interest? Conflict of what? Folks, Rick's 10-year-old, Megan, knows what a conflict of interest is. It's an interest where there's a conflict. This ain't Greek. It's a conflict of interest. And Dr. Bodden, the inimitable Dr. Bodden, the man is well-respected nationwide. He's well-respected worldwide. And I asked him a $4 question. Doc, tell me what a conflict of interest is, because I wanted him to justify and explain how he could possibly get on that witness stand and expect you to believe him and expect that there wasn't some other motivation going on. And his answer was the simplest answer he could give. Nope, I'm not going to answer your question because I don't know what that is. Give me a break. You made it through med school and you don't know what a conflict of interest is? Of course you knew. You have to constantly ask yourself, can I trust the evidence that's being presented? He was the one that was on the stand when Chris Plord put up the pictures of us. He was the one that said, oh yeah, the buttons could be down in this position, and I guess they could get them. And ultimately, the picture was shown where Dr. DeMaio is literally twisting the arm off that mannequin, if you will, trying to manipulate that. Can you trust this evidence, or was he trying one by you? And then he talked about the tissue that was on the buttons. Remember the slides that were made? And this is just a small point, and I'll move past it. But the point of the matter is, you have to ask yourself, can I trust the evidence that's being presented? And he talked over the period of 2 days, he talked about the tissue on the buttons and the cellular breakdown of the tissue on the buttons and red blood cells and not this, that, and the other. And then I asked just a simple question, but by the way, when did you look at it? Oh, I never really looked at it. Pardon? You never what? I never looked at the tissue. I never looked at the slides. Well, what have you been testifying about over the last 2 days? It was so obvious a misstep that all of that evidence was stricken. You can't consider it. Not his testimony about the tissue. He never even looked at it, but he didn't tell you he didn't look at it in direct examination. That had to come out in cross-examination. Just by happenstance, I literally stumbled into that question. And the judge struck all of that testimony. Can you trust the evidence that's being presented? Once again, he refused to consider Spector's history. And then, after all of this, standing up there at the plate, batting cleanup, he decides, you know what? I got an answer. I got an answer. All the science has fallen down. None of it has been supported by any authority about coughing or spitting or whatever. Dr. Lietzma tried to get her to do cerebrate posturing and like a frog, etc. That ain't working. What can we do? What can we do? What can we do? And he says he's in the hotel on Sunday, and bing, there goes the light bulb. She was alive. Her mom wasn't translated. That's what I'll say. And that'll he was sharing a hotel room with on Sunday. He's had this case for 4 years. He was at the autopsy, folks. He's been on this case longer than anybody in the courtroom, with the exception of Mr. Dixon. And even he wasn't at the autopsy. We heard who was at the autopsy, and Dr. Bodden was there. And after 4 years of analysis, after 4 years of thinking about this case, after charging $110,000 for your opinions and conclusions, you just come up with this on Sunday before you testify on, what was it, Tuesday? That's it? The aha moment. That was nothing more than a Hail Mary pass, and we ended up having to shut that down scientifically through Dr. Andrews. Dr. Spitz, for his part, decided, you know what? I went in on a little of the action. I guess I could go in and corroborate Dr. Bodden, so he's not standing out there alone. So I'll say, yep, oh yeah, the spine wasn't transected. I never said it in my in my original testimony. It's not in any report that I've ever written, but oh yeah, I'll buy into that. The problem is, Dr. Spitz didn't even understand the most basic principles of the reflex arc of the neurorespiratory system. I mean, that's sort of an oxymoron, isn't it? Basic principles. I guess there are no basic principles, but I was going to say it's not rocket science, but I can't find a good analogy because I keep tripping up on myself. It is complicated, but it's not complicated for a doctor who's been doing it for 54 years. You understood it. There's northbound lanes. There are southbound lanes. All of the muscles, all of the musculature, and I'm not going to go through an entire dissertation, so don't get scared on this and then move on. All of that musculature, the diaphragms, the intercostals, the abdominal muscles, all of that musculature is controlled right there in the medulla, right there. There are incoming signals that go northbound, like the northbound 110. They go northbound from the lungs. The lungs aren't muscles. The lungs can't contract. The lungs don't breathe for themselves. There are muscles surrounding the lungs that go in and out, and it sucks stuff in and it pushes stuff out. That's how it That's how it works. And the lungs simply send a signal up the vagus nerve that says, what? Breathe for me, please. And that is transected right there. The medulla says, okay, I'll breathe for you, and it sends signals down the spinal cord, and the bridge is out. The spinal cord is cut. And even, according to Dr. Andrews, even if you were to suspend complete reality and assume that there was an axon or two still left, they are so traumatized, they cannot carry impulses. And they certainly can't carry the impulses necessary, the intercostals, the diaphragms. It just ain't going to happen. Physiologically, it's not going to happen. And Dr. Spitz said he based his opinion on basically one paragraph from a book, a chapter in a book that he read the night before. And he was even wrong about that. The vagus nerve doesn't send signals down from the medulla. He agreed with that. After I touched on it and talked to him a little bit more in depth about the article, he agreed. Oh yeah, okay, well that's fine. And then he started talking about other nerves, except the other nerve below the transection spot. That's C3, 4, and 5. And so no matter how they tried to cut it, no matter how they tried to manipulate it, it doesn't work. Scientifically, this does not work well, I'm pointing at what actually does work. This is the evidence. What he's trying to say about Lana Clarkson breathing because of a non-transected spine, even though that's a Hail Mary pass, it's dropped in the end zone. It doesn't work. Dr. Bodden's last-ditch effort doesn't work. Dr. DeMaio testified first, and recall what the basis of his opinion was. The basis of his opinion. Because I asked him 3 or 4 times, tell me the basis of your opinion that this is a self-inflicted wound. Same thing, intraoral gunshot wound, GSR, the tissue on the buttons, and the spatter on his jacket. He was too far away to have the spatter on it. Dr. Spitz, what do you base your opinions on? An intraoral gunshot wound, GSR, tissue on the buttons, and spatter on the jacket. He was too far away to have fired the weapon. Well, I thought that was odd. Look at this. Intraoral gunshot wound, GSR, tissue, spatter on the jacket. He was too far away. Do you think, in your mind's eye, do you think that it's even possible for 3 independent experts who are acting independently and objectively to have come up with this reasoning exactly one another? This was scripted. This was scripted. All 3 of them based their opinions on the same things. And the interesting thing about those opinions, all of them can be and were, according to the evidence, debunked. An intraoral gunshot wound, that was based on statistics. They're usually suicide. Well, they may be usually suicide, but are there homicides that are intraoral? All 3 of them said yes. Oh, absolutely there are. Just not as many. So that does not prove that the wound was self-inflicted. The GSR, we have beaten that down. You all know, I don't need to discuss it. The GSR does not prove that this wound was self-inflicted. As a matter of fact, it's just as consistent with a homicide. The tissue on the buttons, need I say more? The spatter, the spatter on the jacket, all 3 of them said, well, the spatter on his jacket would suggest that he was too far away to have fired the shot. Except for the fact that 2 of their own experts indicated that if the spatter pattern appears at the end of her hem, which is exactly where it appears, and it goes no further, I asked Mr. Pex and Mr. James, where would that put the jacket? Remember what their comments were? Right about there, about 2 feet away. The spatter pattern on the jacket actually shows that he did stand on top of her, and he did put the gun in her mouth. And look at when these reports were written. After 4 years, 4 years with Dr. Bodden, I think a year and a half or 2 years with Dr. DeMaio, and Dr. Spitz was on the case a year and a half or 2 years as well. After years and years and years of being on this case, independent, objective science. They all wrote their reports within 5 days of one another. Within 5 days of one another. You think that's a coincidence? And do you think it's a coincidence that all three of them basically said the exact same thing? This was a script. And when they didn't like the way the script was going, they kept moving it. They just moved it. And it turned into raspberries. And then it turned into decerebrate posturing. And then it turned into deep sighs. And then coughing. And then magic blood. This is the independent, objective science, the unimpeachable science that they talked about. Folks, this was nothing more than a pay-to-say defense. This was nothing more than a pay-to-say defense. If you pay it, I will say it. If you pay enough, I'll say enough. That's what this was. That's this science that they introduced you to. And why would doctors of this esteem get up and put together their scripted testimony like this? Why? Because they have no accountability. All three of them are retired. None of them are still working in medical examiners' offices. Unlike Dr. Pena, who has accountability. Unlike Dr. Andrews, who's still practicing and has accountability. If Dr. Pena goes and start talking about things that she's talking about, or saying things that are not scientifically sound, they have accountability. They have to account to their peers. The only people these folks have to account to is themselves, maybe their wives, one of whom is in the courtroom. One of the instructions that the judge will give you will tell you that an attorney for the defendant failed to disclose information about Dr. Bodden's new theory. Failed to disclose information about this new theory. You can consider this breach in the discovery rules when you give weight to their evidence, when you give weight to his, for sure, Dr. Bodden's evidence and his testimony. You have to ask yourself, why is it that the defense would specifically not turn over evidence in a timely manner? Basically, the rules are, when Dr. Bodden came up with this new theory, the defense had an obligation, a legal obligation, to turn that information over to the prosecution. The first time we heard that information, the first time we heard this aha theory was the same time you heard it, right there on the stand. And that's not fair. The rules of discovery are there for a reason. The rules of discovery are there to avoid surprise. The defense had everything, every document, every report, everything that we had. We were supposed to get all of their discovery. And take a glance, just as an aside. You've seen reference to all of Linda Kinney Bodden's cross-examination through all the experts, through Dr. Pena. You've heard testimony about all his notes, his 42s, many of which are coming into evidence. You've heard testimony about Lynn Harold's notes. You've heard testimony about Jim Carroll's notes and all of his files, all of which have been turned over to the defense according to Dr. Harold and Jim Carroll. You've heard testimony about other from Chris Pinto, Steve Renteria. People keep notes. Experts keep notes. That's what they do. And you heard testimony about Dr. Bodden's report. 580 some odd words or so, 2 pages. Dr. Vindamayo's report. Dr. Smith's report. Discovery rules are there for a reason. Both sides are entitled to the truth. Both sides are entitled to the other side's findings and conclusions and opinions so that we can test them, so that we can explore them and find the truth. You have to ask yourself, Can you see the evidence that was We've already talked about Dr. Henry Lee a little bit, so I'll just move past this relatively quickly. First of all, Henry Lee never testified. It was promised that he was going to testify, and he never did. There's no evidence that high-velocity backspatter will travel 72 inches. There is no evidence of that. That was a promise made and a promise broken. And Dr. Henry Lee was caught, according to him, and concealing evidence. There is no evidence in the record that the prosecution or the court or you ever received that white little object that Sarah Kaplan described, the little white object that Dr. Lee dropped into a vial. We never got it. Why not? Why not? Why would someone on the defense team, and nobody here, by the way, I'm not want the prosecution or the court to see that evidence. They will say pretty much what they want to at trial, and we sit here in the dark. Can you trust their evidence? Let me talk to you a little bit about the true science in this case. We didn't make you promises. We just said in an opening statement, we're going to present some scientific evidence, and we're going to tell you what it can and can't prove. And one of the things that I said in my opening statement is Dr. Pena will tell you honestly, what happens on the autopsy table will not solve this crime. What happens on the autopsy table will not tell you who fired that fatal shot. He didn't overstate his qualifications. He didn't overstate his testimony. And he was asked something that he believed was outside the purview of expertise. He said, you know what, thank you very much. You remember this. He was sitting right there on the witness stand, nodding his head, saying, thank you very much. I'll decline to answer that. That's outside my expertise. Does that lend a level of credibility to someone's opinion? And what it did say, fine pass and left wrists, 2 bruises on the right, 1 on the left hand. And when I said left wrist, I'm talking about this area here. You've all seen the photographs, and I'll show you a photo in just a second. There was acute bruising on the left side of her tongue, and there was no bruising on the right side. No bruising on the right side of her tongue. This is the doctor who actually did the analysis. He's looking for trauma inside the mouth. That's where the gun blast was. It's not like he just was looking at her little toe or pinky toe and happened upon, a bruise on her toe or could have missed it. That's what he's looking for. He saw a bruise on the left tongue. There was no bruise on the right side of her tongue. And he said that there was a focal lesion just inside her lip. A focal lesion meaning a pinpoint lesion just inside her lip. I asked him, in your opinion, is the focal lesion and the bruise on her tongue consistent with blunt force trauma? And he said, yes, it is. And I asked him one question further. Is it consistent with someone pushing a piece of steel against your lip? Could you get that lesion from that activity? Absolutely you could. Could you get that lesion? Yes, you could. These are the bruises. Lana Clarkson's right hand, a bruise here where my thumb is, a bruise here where my forefinger is. Bruising on either side of her wrist, as you can see. Is that consistent with a struggle?
I agree with him.
Is that consistent with her struggling to get away or push back or push against someone with a gun? Bruising on her left hand, acute bruising, meaning within the last 24 hours, and Dr. Pena said a lot of times acute bruising is within the last 6 hours.
I think even if she wanted to do that to herself, she would think about the viewing and the funeral and everything. Don't you think? Like, her face was her brand, right?
But he gave it the most time. He said, I'll give you the most time. The most time is within the last 24 hours. Who was with Lana Clarkson in the last 6 hours of her life. Where did those bruises come from? With regard to the diagram of the tongue, this is what I was talking about. It's not like Dr. Pena just happened to be glancing in her mouth. That's where he was doing all of his work. He was looking for bruising. He was looking for maladies, if you will, in the mouth, in the oral cavity. There was no bruise on the right side of the tongue. Dr. Luis Pena, under the auspices of the LA County Coroner's Office, determined that the cause of death was a gunshot wound to the head and neck. We all know that. He also determined that, in his expert opinion, this was a homicide. If this was a homicide, there's only one other person in the room who could have done it. It's Philip Spector. We called Dr. John Andrews. We called him in rebuttal to put to rest a couple of things that their unbiased science had suggested. Her spine was completely transected. And keep in mind, this was not pie in the sky for Dr. Andrews. This was actually the person who did the analysis on her spine and on her brain. He is the forensic neuropathologist who did the investigation, who did the examination. Her spine was completely transected, and she suffered total spinal shock. Something so basic to this area of medicine that I think he said he got 1,400 or 14,000 hits, one of the two, when he did a basic search in the medical database. She suffered total spinal shock. This is something, folks, according to Dr. Andrews, that's so prevalent in the medical history, in the medical industry, if you will. Dr. Bodden would have known about it. Dr. Lee, Dr. Spitz, Dr. DeMille all would have known. Didn't mention a word. Dr. Lietzma didn't mention a word about spinal shock. Spinal shock means the entire spine suffers a trauma so bad that nothing will work. There are no neurotransmissions. She couldn't breathe. No posturing, none of this frog thing. That would never happen. No running around like a chicken with your head cut off. That doesn't happen. Not in higher vertebrates. That happens with frogs and chickens because they're lower on the scale of evolution, quite frankly. So sorry for them. But they ain't us. When our spine is transected at the C1 level, we are done. That's it. There is no movement. Lights out. No moving, no breathing, no coughing, nothing. Certainly no raspberries and no magic blood. Dr. Andrews went on and explained the blood in the alveoli. He told you that there's two reasons that blood could get in the alveoli. And in his opinion, the reasons the blood did get in the alveoli, it's gravity. It's gravity. And the movement of the body during an experiment where someone actually put barium in the stomach and just performed and made its way up the esophagus, down the air passages, into the primary, secondary, and tertiary bronchial passages, and down into the alveoli. That's a mouthful, but everyone in here knows exactly what I'm talking about. Down into the grapes. That's how the blood got there. Why did the lungs weigh so much? He gave you answers for that too. Lana Clarkson would have suffered no muscle movement, skeletal muscle movement at all. But she would have or could have suffered one muscle movement. Everybody knows what that muscle is. Boom, boom. The heart. Boom, boom. Very boom. Weaker. Boom, boom. That blood is being sent from the heart to the lungs. Those residual heartbeats would for her lungs filling up with blood. They're desperately trying to oxygenate the blood. The lungs are, but they can't work. They're sending signals to the nerve. So that the blood inlets, not the air inlets, but the blood inlets, the capillaries, fill with blood. And neurogenic pulmonary edema is a phenomenon well known in the medical industry. Babies' lungs, according to Dr. Andrews, even babies' lungs get heavy after death because of neurogenic pulmonary edema. There are medical reasons that Lana Clarkson's lungs were in the shape they were in, and none of them have anything to do with breathing. And what's the stark difference between John Andrews, Dr. John Andrews, MD, And Dr. DeMaio, Dr. Spitz, Dr. Bodden. I'll tell you what it is. The medical literature. He said something that was so impressive to you. He said something that you don't hear often from experts. And that is, you don't have to take my word for it. Everything I'm telling you is founded in the medical literature. This is the stuff that medical students are taught, and these are the resources that they are taught from. Dr. Andrews backed up every one of his statements with measure out of medicals and medical books. Dr. Bodden, give me one citation. Give me one citation, Dr. Bodden, for your opinion and conclusion that supports your opinion and conclusion that she had a partially transected spine and therefore continued to breathe. He said, well, okay, all right, hang on. Dr. DeMaio's book and Dr. Spitz's book. You got to be kidding. And then we took a lunch break. And I fully expected that Dr. Bodden would come back in and say, here's the page reference in Dr. DeMaio's book, and here's the page reference in Dr. Spitz's book. Except for the fact that Dr. Bodden knows full well at this stage of the trial that we've read Dr. DeMaio's book and we've read Dr. Spitz's book. He's seen cross-examinations, or we cross-examined him on certain things that came out of both those books. He came up with zero resource material to support his opinions and conclusions. None. And Dr. Andrews, conversely, gave tons. Jim Carroll was called to talk about guns, holsters, and ammunition. And this will go relatively quick. Why did we call Jim Carroll? Because we wanted to leave no question in anybody's mind who owned that weapon. That was not Lana Clarkson's weapon. That was Phil Spector's weapon. And how did we prove it? First of all, where the holster was found. The holster in the open drawer was found just feet away from Lana Clarkson. It was in Phil Spector's drawer, and it's Phil Spector's holster. How do we know it's Phil Spector's holster? First of all, the Colt Cobra was designed to fit inside that Hunter holster. And we know that that's Phil Spector's holster because Phil Spector has two other Hunter holsters in his house. That is a holster of preference for Phil Spector. So those other two Hunter holsters are the exact same model and the same circa, if you will, same time frame as the Hunter holster that was in the bureau. The bullets. We asked Jim Carroll to do an analysis of the bullets. The cartridges that were found inside that Colt Cobra were very rare, number one, and included two different manufacturers, Speer and Smith & Wesson Plus P. Smith & Wesson Plus P is very rare. How do we know that Phil Spector owned and loaded that gun? Because other guns in the house included the exact same ammunition. They were loaded with the exact same ammunition. There is no question that that gun was owned by, kept by, loaded by, and secured by Philip Spector. Christine Pinto, criminalist from the crime lab, talked about GSR. And she told you that, and I don't even want to go into this anymore. I mean, I'm so tired of talking about GSR. Every one of their experts acted like GSR was something that it wasn't. And even Dr. Spitz, who has published on the issue and was confronted with his own words out of his own book, wouldn't admit the truth about GSR. In his own book, it said, GSR will not tell you who fired a weapon. There are too many factors. Everybody remember that colloquy between myself and Dr. He said, yeah, I did write that, but that's a different context. Well, what different context would it be? Either it does or doesn't. Before he was getting paid by Mr. Spector, those were his words. GSR will not tell you who fired a weapon. Christine Pinto specifically testified to that. She's an expert. She said, nope, it absolutely won't tell you who fired a weapon. All it'll tell you is that someone was in a vicinity of a fired weapon. And the other thing she told you, which we know to be true, is you wash your hands, you can wipe your hands, and GSR comes off. It just comes off, even through normal activity. 90% of it will be gone within the first hour. Steve Renteria, again, the true science. He was in the location to look for blood. He wasn't in there to look for a pair of shoes and socks. He wasn't in there to look for a gun. He wasn't in there to look for some paperwork or a driver's license. He was in there to look for blood. That's why he was there. That's why he was called to the scene. He did a visual inspection, revealed no blood in the area in front of Lana Clarkson, in the area in front of the stairway, on the wall of the stairs, and on the stairs and on the banister itself. No blood. He also did a Kessel-Myers test. The KM test is sensitive to 1 in 10,000 parts, and that wasn't good enough for him. The visual inspection wasn't good enough, so he did KM testing. He did it randomly, and you remember there's some photographs with some white X marks on the carpet. He just randomly went around the carpet all around in front of her, in front of Clarkson, negative, no blood. Any carpet area, no blood. Kessel-Myers test came back negative for all blood in the area in front of her. There was no blood. But that wasn't good enough either. He then went back the next day after 42 or 43 hours. When the blood has time to, if there were any blood, it has time to harden. Luminol looks for iron, so it'll test positive for metal. There's iron in the blood. It's sensitive to 1 in 5 million parts. 1 in 5 million parts. This is not a man who was going out to his first crime scene. Steve Renteria had been doing this for 23 years. 23 years. He's a forensic criminalist. Knows what he's doing. He looked for blood with the luminol. He sprayed the entire area in front of the Lana Clarkson and the entire foyer area. You know what luminesced? The pool of blood under her purse, and where the door, the little metal jamb, if you will, on the threshold of the door opens and closes. That's what luminesced. The luminol was working perfectly. And it didn't luminesce with any spatter. And he was looking not only for blood droplets, but for high velocity spatter as well. There was none. So what does that tell us? We know where the pattern was, folks. We know where the pattern of blood in this crime scene was. Take a look. It stopped right there. The high velocity backspatter came out of her mouth and didn't go any further than about 2 feet down to her skirt. Which, by the way, is consistent with all of the literature that was discussed during the course of this trial. Which?
Okay, we're gonna stop there. We are 39 minutes in. Really? Potato starch luminesces? I didn't know that. Cat pee luminesces. Because I got some kind of, I can't remember what it was called, but some kind of spray that's supposed to eliminate cat pee, and it came with a black light. So you could, yeah, you don't even need anything to spray on it. Just a black light cat pee will luminesce under a black light. So you could see where the cat pee was. Really? I used to watch Bones in NCIS. I didn't watch it till the very end of this series. I don't know why. There's a whole bunch of series I used to watch that I never made to the end. A lot of it was nursing school, and because when I went back, well, some like in the early 90s, like shows I watched in the 80s and early 90s, I didn't finish because of LPN school, and then in the late 90s, early 2000s shows I didn't finish watching because I went to RN school. So that's a lot. Like Moonlighting, I never got to the end of Moonlighting. And then like Bones, well, NCIS, that lasted forever. I don't know why I quit watching that. I guess, I don't know, maybe ADHD, I just got bored. It's possible. But there's a lot of shows I've gone back and like binge watched the whole thing now. And then there's some shows I never watched, like Friends. I've not seen one episode of Friends. Seinfeld is another one. Tonic water luminescence. Wow, that's crazy. So, how do they know the difference? Like, if they go to try to find blood, how do they know it's not just someone spilled some tonic water there? I don't know. Okay, so we will be back tomorrow at 8 for the rest, not the rest, but some more closing arguments. Oh, is it? I thought it ended. I thought it was over. And now they're doing like the prequel NCIS where Gibbs is young. Is it good again? I think that's why I quit watching it. Well, no, actually, it was still good when I quit watching it. I quit watching it after Frank died. Wasn't that his name? Gibbs' old partner. When he died, I think that was the season I quit watching it. And then Tony left, and then Neil left, and I was like, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, like I was watching the OJ trial this morning on Court Vibes channel, and the guy on the stand, I don't know if he was a detective or a CSI or what, but he was like, "Oh, well, it looked like blood." And I was like, "They don't say that ever." They said they always say it looked presumptive for blood. They never say it looked like blood. Who is this guy? He never say that. Okay, so we're gonna hop over to Wackadoodle's trial. I am gonna forever call this dude a wackadoodle because he's a wackadoodle. I'm still dumbfounded over this guy. I don't know how he thought he was gonna get away with this. So this will redirect you if you're coming with us to watch the trial. So I will see you over there. Thank you for coming out to watch this. We're almost done, and then I'm gonna put up a poll. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 things. I'm gonna put the list up, and then if you guys want to add any other ones you're interested in to the list, and then I'm gonna make a poll, and then we'll pick which one we're gonna do next. So I'll do that sometime this week. Oh yeah, Abby and Ducky's gone now too. Well, of course Ducky, he died, but Abby's gone too. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Is Tony back now? I thought I heard, well, yeah, I thought it was over, but then I thought I heard Tony was coming back. See, I don't even know what's going on. It's been so long since I watched it. But I also kind of wanted to watch the prequel one too. But yeah, I used to watch it all the time. I just don't want, I get stuck watching. Oh, that's going to be good. I hope. Maybe. I plan to watch things and then I get stuck watching YouTube videos and then I don't end up watching shows I want to watch. I see commercials for shows and I'm like, "Oh, cool, that's going to be such a good show." And then I never watch it. Okay, guys, I will see you in a few minutes. Bye.